Article 7.28 Fire Resistive Cable Systems. So, Section 7.28.1.1 Scope. This article covers the installation of fire resistive cables, fire resistive conductors, and other system components used for survivability of critical circuits to ensure continued operation during a specified time under fire condition as required in this code. Section 7.28.1.2 Definitions. So, for fire resistive cable system, it means a cable and components used to ensure survivability of critical circuits for a specified time under fire conditions. Section 7.28.1.3 Other articles. Wherever the requirements of other articles of this code in Article 7.28 differ, the requirements of Article 7.28 shall apply. 7.28.1.4 General. Fire resistive cables, fire resistive conductors, and components shall be tested and listed as a complete system, shall be designated for use in a specific fire-rated system, and shall not be interchangeable between systems. So next one is 7.28.1.5 for installations. So fire resistive cable system installed outside the fire rated rooms that they serve, such as the electrical room or the fire pump room, shall comply with the requirements of 7.28.1.5 A through H and all other installation instruction provided in the listing. So for number 1 or letter A rather, mounting. The fire resistive cable system shall be secured to the building structure in accordance with the listing and the manufacturer's installation instruction. Second one is supports. The fire system shall be supported in accordance with the listing and the manufacturer's installation instruction. So C is raceways and couplings, where the fire resistive system is listed to be installed in a raceway, the raceway enclosing the system and the couplings and connector shall be listed as part of the fire rated system. Sa D, cable trays used as part of fire resistive system shall be listed as part of the fire resistive system. Sa F, pulling lubricants. Fire resistive cable systems installed in a raceway shall only use pulling lubricants listed as part of the fire resistive cable systems. G, vertical supports. The cables and conductors installed in a vertical raceway shall be supported in accordance with the listing of the fire resistive cable systems. H, splices. Only splices that are part of the listing for the fire resistive cable system shall be used. Splices shall have a manufacturer's installation instruction. Section 7.28.1.60 for grounding. Fire resistive system installed in a raceway requiring an equipment grounding conductor shall use the same fire rated cable described in the system unless alternative equipment grounding conductors are listed with the system. So last section is section 7.28.1.20. In addition to the marking required in section 3.10.3.17, system cables and conductors shall be surface marked with the suffix FRR or fire resistive rating along with the circuit integrity duration in hours and with the system identifier. So kailangan yung fire resistive cable mo may suffix na FRR, tapos yung yun along with the circuit integrity duration in hours, kung ilang oras yung kaya niyang i-handle. Article 7.50 Energy Management System. So, Section 7.50.1.1 Scope. This article applies to the installation and operation of energy management system. 7.50.1.2 may isa lang na definition, which is yung control, or it is the determined process of connecting, disconnecting, increasing, or reducing electric power. Section 7.50.1.20 Alternate power sources. An energy management system shall not override any controls necessary to ensure continuity of an alternate power source for the following: for the fire pump, healthcare facilities, emergency systems, legally required standby system, critical operation power system. So yung mga energy management system shall not override control. Ibig sabihin, kailangan hindi siya maapektuhan yung control ng fire pump, healthcare, emergency system, legally required standby system. So, Section 7.50.1.30, load management. Energy management system shall be permitted to monitor and control electrical loads unless restricted in accordance with 7.50.1.30 A through C. Load shedding controls. Energy management system shall not override the load shedding controls put in place to ensure the minimum electrical capacity for the following. So, fire pumps, emergency system, legally required standby system, critical operations, power systems. Sabi naman, disconnection of power. An energy management system shall not be permitted to cause disconnection of power to the following. So, elevators, escalators, moving walks, or stairway, lift chairs, positive mechanical ventilation for hazardous locations, ventilation used to exhaust hazardous gas, circuits supplying emergency lighting, at essential electrical system in healthcare facilities. C. Branch circuit, circuit of branch circuit, capacity of branch circuit feeder or service. An energy management system shall not cause a branch circuit feeder or service to be overloaded at any time. 7.50.1.50 field markings. Where an energy management system is employed to control electrical power through the use of remote means, a directory identifying the control device or devices and circuits shall be posted on the enclosure of the controller disconnect or branch circuit overcurrent device. Next article is Article 7.60 or fire alarm systems. So 7.60.1 Part 7.60.1 General. Section 7.60.1.1 Scope. This article covers the installation of wiring and equipment of fire alarm system, including all circuits controlled and powered by fire alarm system. So para sa definition, may ilan dito. First is abandoned fire alarm cable. Installed fire alarm cable that is not terminated at equipment other than the connector and not identified for future use with a tag. Yan, abandoned siya. For alarm circuit naman, the portion of the wiring system between the load side of the overcurrent device or the power limited supply and the connected equipment of all circuits powered and controlled by fire alarm systems. Fire alarm circuits are classified as either non-power limited or power limited. Next section is 7.60.1.3 or other articles. Circuits and equipment shall comply with 7.60.1.3a through K. Only those sections of Article 3.0 reference in this article shall apply to the fire alarm systems. Spread of fire or products of combustion. So sa ducts, plenums, and other articles or and other handling spaces rather. Power limited and non-power limited fire alarm cables installed in ducts or plenums or other spaces used for environmental air shall comply with 3.0.1.2.2 1.22. So hazardous classifications, yan. Ito yung mga ano nila. Pwede mong gamit ang reference. Yung mga articles 5.0, 5.16, yan part. So, for corrosive or damp or wet locations naman, ito pwede mong gamitin. O pwede maging reference. Sa naman, building control circuits, yan. Optical fire cables, where the optical fiber cables are utilized for fire alarm circuits, the cable shall be installed in accordance with Article 7.70. Sa G, yan, installation of conductors with other system, raceways or sleeves exposed to different temperatures. I, vertical support for fire-rated cables and conductors. Ayan, vertical installation of circuit integrity cables and conductors installed in a raceway or conductors and cables of electrical circuit protective system shall be installed in accordance with 3.0.1.19 number of and sizes of cables and conductors in raceways. Yan. Bushing. Yan. Sa cable routing assemblies, power limited fire alarms cables shall be permitted to be installed in plenum. Cable routing assembly, riser cable routing assemblies, and general purpose cable routing assemblies selected in accordance with table 8.0.5.45, yeah, listed in accordance with provisions 8.0.6.13. Yeah. M naman, communication raceways, power limited for alarm cable shall be permitted to be installed in plenum. Communications raceways, riser communications, and general purpose communication raceways, in accordance with table 8.0.5.45. Yeah. Next section is 7.60.1.21. Access to electrical equipment behind panels designed to allow access. Access to electrical equipment shall not be denied by an accumulation of conductors and cables that prevents removal of panels, including suspended ceiling panels. Yan. Kailangan yung electrical equipment mo, hindi siya maharangan ng mga cables, mga conductors na magsasani na hindi mo siya ma-servicean. Kailangan free siya from conductors and cables. Next section is 7.60.1.24, mechanical execution of work. So A, general fire alarm circuits should be installed in a neat workmanlike manner, and conductors installed on the surface of the ceilings and sidewalls shall be supported by building structures in such a manner that the cable will not be damaged by normal building use. Sabi naman, circuit integrity cable. Circuit integrity cable shall be supported at a distance not exceeding 600 mm. Yeah, we're located within 2100 mm of the floor as covered in 7.60.2.13, A1, and 7.60.3.91. As applicable, the cable should be fastened in a poor manner in intervals of not more than 450 mm. Cable supports fasteners shall be steel. Yan, kailangan gagamitan mo siya ng fasteners not more than 450 mm. Ibig sabihin, per 450 mm, kailangan may fastener. Next section is 7.60.1.25. Abandoned cables. The accessible portion of abandoned fire alarm cable shall be removed for cables are identified for future use with a tag, and the tag shall be of sufficient durability to withstand the environment involved. Next section is 7.60.1.30, fire alarm circuit identification. Fire alarm circuits shall be identified in the terminal and junction location in a manner that helps to prevent unintentional signals on fire alarm circuits during testing and servicing of other systems. Yan. Next section is 7.60.1.32, fire alarm circuits extending beyond one building. Non-power limited fire alarm circuits and power limited fire alarm circuits that extend beyond one building and run outdoors shall meet the installation of the requirements of part 8.0234 and shall meet the installation part of 3.01. 7.60.1.35 fire alarm circuit requirements. Fire alarm circuits shall comply with 7.60.1.35A and B. So sa A is non-power limited fire alarm circuits o NPLFA circuits. Ito yung magiging reference mo, yung part 7.60.1 and part 7.60.2. Sa power limited fire alarm circuits naman, yung part 7.60.1 din, pero 7.60.3 isa. Part 7.60.2 non-power limited fire alarm circuits. Ito yung nabanggit natin kanina. Section 7.60.2.1 NPLFA circuit power source requirements. So the power source of the non-power limited fire alarm circuit shall comply with chapters 1 through 4. The output voltage shall not be more than 600 volts nominal. The fire alarm circuit disconnect shall be permitted to be secured in an on position. Fire alarm circuit disconnect shall be permitted to be secured in an on position. So B naman, branch circuit. The branch circuit supplying the fire alarm equipment shall supply no other loads, and the other location of branch circuit overcurrent device shall be permanently identified at the fire alarm control unit. So, kailangan siya lang isa dun sa circuit. Wala na siyang susupply ang mga ilaw o mga saksakan. Kailangan for fire alarm equipment lang siya. Next section is 7.60.2.3 and PLFA circuit overprotection device o circuit overprotection. Overcurrent protection for conductors 2 mm and larger shall be provided in accordance with the conductor ampacity without applying the ampacity adjustment correction factors of 3.10 to the ampacity calculation. Overcurrent protection shall not exceed 7 amperes for 0.75 mm square conductors and 10 amperes for 1.25 mm square conductors. Next section, 7.60.2.5, yung location ng NPLFA circuit overcurrent. Overcurrent shall be located at the point where the conductor to be protected receive its supply. Overcurrent devices shall be located at the point where the conductor to be protected receive its supply. So sa 7.60.2.6 naman, circuit wiring, installation of non-power limited fire alarm circuits are in accordance with 1.10.1.3, 3.0.1.7, 3.0.1.11, 3.0.1.15, and so on and so forth. Next one is section 7.60.2.8. Conductors of different circuits in the same cable enclosure or raceway. So for A, class 1 with NPLFA circuits, class 1 and non-power limited fire alarm circuits shall be permitted to occupy the same cable enclosure or raceway without regard to whether the individual circuits are alternating current or direct current, provided all conductors are insulated for maximum voltage of any conductor in the enclosure or raceway. So pwede siya magkasama sa isang enclosure kahit na AC man yan o DC, as long as yung conductors niya are insulated for the maximum voltage of any conductor. Sabi naman, fire alarm with power supply circuits. Power supply in fire alarm circuit conductors shall be permitted in the same cable, enclosure, or raceway only where connected to the same equipment. 7.60.2.9 Conductors sizes and use. Only copper conductors shall be permitted to be used for fire alarm circuits. 0.75 mm square and 1.25 mm square shall be permitted to be used, provided the supply loads do not exceed the ampacities given in table 4.2.1.5 and are installed in a raceway, an approved enclosure or listed cable. Conductors larger than 1.25 shall not supply loads greater than the ampacities given in 3.10. Insulation naman is kailangan ng insulation system voltage ay not less than 600 volts. Conductors larger than 1.25 mm square shall comply with Article 3.10. Conductors naman na 0.75 tsaka 1.25 mm square shall be type KF2, KFF2, PAFF, PTFF, PF, PFF, PGF, yan. Marami pang iba. Conductors with other types and thickness of insulation shall be permitted if listed for non-power fire alarm circuits use. C. Conductor materials. Conductors shall be solid or stranded copper. Next section is 7.60.2.11 number of conductors. NPLFA circuits and class 1 circuits for only non-power limited fire alarm circuit and class 1 circuit conductor in the raceway. The number of conductors shall be determined in accordance with 3.0.1.17. The ampacity adjustment correction factor given in 3.10.2.6b3a shall apply if conductors carry continuous load in excess of 10% of the ampacity of each conductor. B. Power supply conductors and NPLFA circuit conductors where power supply conductors and non-power limited fire alarm circuit and conductors are permitted in a raceway in accordance with 7.60.2.8. The number of conductors shall be determined in accordance with the 3.0.1.17. The ampacity adjustment factors given in 3.10.2.6 B3A shall apply as follows. 1. To all conductors for the fire alarm circuit conductor carries continuous load in excess of 10% of the ampacity of each conductor where the total number of conductors is more than 3. 2 naman is to the power supply conductors only where the fire alarm circuit conductors do not carry continuous load in excess of 10% of the ampacity of each conductor, and where the number of power supply conductors more than 3. So for C, cable trays, where fire alarm circuit conductors are installed in a cable trays, they shall comply with 3.92.2.13 and 3.92.2.71a. Section 7.60.2.13, multi-conductor and PLFA cables. Multi-conductor, non-power limited fire alarm cables that meet the requirements in 760.4.1 shall be permitted to be used on fire alarm circuits operating at 150 volts or less, and shall be installed in accordance with 7.60.2.13a and b. So for the A, NPLFA wiring method. Multi-conductor non-power limited fire alarm circuit cables shall be installed in accordance with 7.60.2.13a1, a2, a3. Ito na yun. And raceways, exposed on ceiling or sidewalls or finish concealed spaces, cable splices or terminations shall be made in the listed fittings, boxes, enclosure, fire alarm devices or utilization equipment. 2. If passing through a floor or wall, the cable shall be installed in a metal raceway or rigid not metallic conduit where passing through floor or wall to a height of 2,100 mm above the floor, unless adequate protection can be afforded by building construction such as detailed in 7.60.2.13a1, unless an equivalent solid guard is provided. 3. Hoistways. Cable shall be installed in rigid metal conduit, rigid non-metallic conduit, and intermediate metal conduit, liquid tight flexible non-metallic conduit, or electrical metallic tubing were installed in hoistways. B. Application of listed NPLFA cables. The use of non-power limited fire alarm circuit cables shall comply with 7.60.2.13b1 to b4. Sa duct specifically fabricated for environmental air, multi-conductor of non-power limited fire alarm circuit cables types NPLFP, NPLFR, and NPLF shall not be installed in exposed ducts. 2. Other spaces used for environmental air. Cables installed in other spaces used for environmental air shall be type NPLFP. 3. Riser. Cables installed in vertical runs and penetrating one or more floors, or cables installed in vertical runs in a shop shall be type NPLFR. Floor penetration requiring type NPLFR shall contain only cables suitable for riser or plenum use. Last naman is yung other wiring within buildings. Cable installed in building location other than the locations covered in 7.60.13b1 to b1, b2, b3 shall be type NPLF. Next section is yung for power limited fire alarm circuits naman. 7.60.3.1 Power sources for PLFA circuits. Power sources. The power source for a power limited fire alarm circuit shall be specified in 7.60.3.1 A1, A2, A3. A listed PLFA or class 3 transformer. A listed PLFA or class 3 power supply. Listed equipment marked to identify the PLFA power source. Section 7.60.3.4 Circuit marking. The equipment supplying PLFA shall be durably marked where plainly visible to indicate each circuit that is power limited fire alarm circuit. 7.60.3.7 Wiring methods on supply side of the PLFA power source. Conductors and equipment on the supply side of the power source shall be in accordance with appropriate requirements in 7.60.2 and chapters 1 through 4. Transformers or other devices supplied from power supply conductors shall be protected by an overcurrent device rated not over 20 amperes. So, kailangan din siya maglampas ng 20 amperes. Next one is 7.60.3.10 Wiring methods and materials on load side of the PLFA power source. Fire alarm circuits on the load side of the power source shall be permitted to be installed using wiring method and materials in 7.60.3.10 A, B, or combination of A and B. So sa A, installation shall be in accordance with 7.60.2.6 and conductor shall be solid or stranded copper. Sa PLFA naman na wiring methods, the power limited fire alarm conductors and cable described in 7.60.4.4 shall be installed as detailed in 7.60.3.10 B1, B2, B3 of this section and 300.7. Devices shall be installed in accordance with 1.10.1.3, 3.0.1.11, 3.0.1.15. Number 1. In raceway, exposed on ceiling or sidewalls or fish concealed spaces, cable splices or terminations shall be made in listed fittings, boxes, enclosure, fire alarm devices or utilization equipment. Where installed exposed, cables shall be adequately supported and installed in such a way that maximum protection against physical damage is afforded by the building construction such as baseboards, door frames, ledges, and so forth. Where located within 2,100 mm of the floor, cables should be securely fastened in approved manner at intervals not more than 450. So, parang katulad din kanina, 400 plus din. So, sa ito naman, passing through a floor of wall, cables should be installed in metal raceway or rigid non-metallic conduit were passing through a floor or to a wall to a height of 2,100 mm above the floor unless adequate protection can be afforded by building construction as detailed in 7.60.3.10 B1 or unless as equivalent solid guard is provided. Number 3, in hoistway, cable shall be installed in rigid metal conduit, rigid non-metallic conduit, intermediate metallic conduit, or electrical metallic tubing were installed in hoistways. 7.60.3.13, installation of conductors and equipment in cables, compartments, cable trays, enclosure, manholes, outlet boxes, device boxes, raceways, and cable routing assemblies for power limited fire alarm circuits. Conductors and equipment for PLFA alarm circuits shall be installed in accordance with 7.60.3.15 through 7.60.3.23. So 3.15, installation of PLFA cables in buildings. Installation of PLFA in buildings shall comply with 7.60.3.15 A through J. So listing PLFA cables installed in buildings shall be listed. B. Ducts is specifically fabricated for environmental air. The following cables should be permitted in ducts specifically fabricated for air as described in 3.0.1.22. If they are directly associated with the air distribution system. Number 1, types FPLP and FPLP-CI cables in length as short as practicable to perform the required functions. Number 2, types FPLP, FPLP-CI, FPLR, FPLR-CI, FPL, and FPL-CI cables installed in raceway that are installed in compliance with 3.0.1.22b. Letter C is other spaces used for environmental air, plenums. The following shall be permitted in other spaces used for environmental air as described in 3.0.1.22. Yan, type FPLP cables, installed in plenum communication raceways, FPLP cables installed in plenum routing assemblies, FPLP and FPLP-CI supported by open metallic cable trays or cable tray systems. Sa 5, types FPLP, FPLR, FPL cables installed in raceway that are installed in compliance with 3.0.1.22 C. 6, types FPLP, FPLR, and FPL cables supported by solid bottom metal cable trays with solid metal covers in other spaces used for environmental air or plenums as described in 3.0.1.22. Number 7, type FPLP, FPLR, FPL cables installed in plenum communication raceways, riser communication raceway or general purpose communication raceway supported by solid bottom metal cable trays with solid metal covers and other spaces used for environmental air plenums as described in 3.0.1.22c. Sa D, risers, cables in vertical runs. The following cables should be permitted in vertical runs penetrating one or more floors and in vertical runs in shaft. Types FPLP cables and FPLR cables. Types FPLP and FPLP cables installed in the following: plenum communication raceway, plenum cable routing assemblies, riser communication raceways, riser cable routing assemblies. Sa riser cables and metal raceways, ganun din siya. Halos types FPLP, FPLR, and FPL cables. Number 2, types FPLP, FPLR, and FPL cables installed in plenum communication raceways. B, riser communication raceway. And C, general purpose communication raceways. Next one is risers cables in fireproof shops. The following cables should be permitted to be used. Number 1 is FPLP, FPLR, FPL cables. So pareho lang sila halos nung lahat. Sa 2 naman, ganong cable din installed in the following: plenum communication raceway, plenum cable routing assemblies, riser communication raceways, riser cable routing assemblies, general purpose communication raceways, tsaka sa general purpose cable routing assemblies. Next one is risers 1 and 2 family dwellings. Pareho lang sila. Yan. Sa H naman, other building locations, the following cables should be permitted to be installed in the following in the building location other than the locations covered by 7.70.5.4. Ganun din. FPLP, FPLR, FLP cables. Yan. Installed in the following: plenum communication raceway, plenum cable routing assemblies, riser communication raceways. Ayan, pareho lang sila. Sa 3 naman is types FPLP, FPLR, FPL cables installed in raceway of a type recognized in Chapter 3. Sa letter I, non-concealed spaces, cables specified in Chapter 3 and meeting the requirements of 7.60 A and B shall be permitted to be installed in non-concealed spaces where the exposed length of cable does not exceed 3 meters. J, portable fire alarm system. A portable fire alarm system provided to protect a stage or set when not in use shall be permitted to use wiring methods in accordance with 5.30.2.2. Next section, 7.60.3.16, separation from electric light power, class 1 NPL FA or medium powered network broadband communication circuit power conductors. A, general. PLFA circuit cables and conductors shall not be placed in any cable tray, compartment, enclosure, manhole, outlet box, device box, or raceway similar fitting with conductors of electric light power, class 1, non-power limited power alarm circuits, and medium power network broadband communication unless permitted by 7.60.3.16 B through G. B, separated by barriers. So, diba sabi sa A, hindi mo pwedeng isama yung power limited power alarm circuit sa mga electric light sa power circuit. Pero kapag separated by barriers siya, power limited power alarm circuit shall be permitted to be installed together with the class 1 non-power limited power alarm circuits and medium power network power broadband communication circuits where they are separated by barrier. Raceway within enclosure. In enclosure, power limited power alarm circuit shall be permitted to be installed in a raceway within the enclosure to separate them from class 1 non-power limited power alarm and medium power network power broadband communication circuits. D, associated system with enclosures. Power limited power alarm conductors and compartments, enclosure, device boxes, outlet boxes, or similar fitting shall be permitted to be installed with electric light power, class 1 non-power limited power alarm circuits, medium power network powered broadband communication circuits where they are introduced solely to connect the equipment connected to power limited power alarm circuits and comply with either of the following. So sa 1, the electric light power, class 1 non-power limited power alarm, and yan, are routed to maintain a minimum of 6 mm separation from conductors and cables of power limited power alarm circuits. The circuit conductors operate at 150 volts or less to ground and also comply with one of the following. Fire alarms power limited circuits are installed in type FPL, FPLR, FPLP or permitted substitute cables provided this power limited cable extending beyond the jacket are separated by minimum of 6 mm or by a non-conductive sleeve or non-conductive barrier from all of the conductors. B. Power limited fire alarm circuit conductors installed as non-power limited for non-limited circuits in accordance with 7.60.2.6. Sa E, enclosure with single opening. Power limited fire alarm circuit conductors entering compartments. Enclosure, device boxes, outlet boxes shall be permitted to be installed with electric light, yan, where they are introduced solely to connect the equipment connected to power limited fire circuits or to other circuits controlled by the fire alarm circuits to which the other conductors in their enclosure are located. Where power limited fire alarm circuit conductors must enter an enclosure that is provided with a single opening, they shall be permitted to enter through a single fitting such as a T, provided the conductors are separated from the conductors of other circuits by continuous and firmly fixed non-conductors such as flexible tubing. Next one is in hoistways. Hoistways, power limited fire alarm circuits. Conductors shall be installed in rigid metallic conduit, are non-metallic conduit, IMC, liquid tight flexible non-metallic conduit, or electrical metallic tubing for elevators or similar equipment. These conductors shall be permitted to be installed in 6.20.3.1. Sa G naman, other applications. For other application, power limited fire alarm circuits conductors shall be separated by at least 15 mm from conductors of any electric light. Yan. Unless one of the following conditions are met. Is met rather. One, either A, all of the electrical light, power, class 1 or non-power limited fire alarm, and medium power, network powered broadband communication circuit conductors, or B, all of the power limited fire alarm circuits conductor and arrays were in a metallic sheeted or metal clad or non-metallic sheeted or type UF cables. Tapos sa 2 is all of the electric light, power, class 1 and non-power limited fire alarms and medium power network powered broadband communication circuits conductors are permanently separated from all of the power limited fire alarm circuits conductors by continuous and firmly fixed non-conductors such as porcelain tubes or flexible tubing in addition to the insulations of the conductors. So 7.60.3.19, installation of conductors of different PLFA circuits, class 2, class 3 and communication circuits in the same cable, enclosure, cable tray, raceway or routing assemblies. A, 2 or more PLFA circuits, cable and conductors of 2 or more power limited fire alarm circuits, communication circuits or class 3 circuits shall be permitted within the same cable, enclosure, cable tray, raceway or cable routing assembly. 2 is class B. Class 2 circuits with PLFA circuits. Conductor of 1 or more class 2 circuits shall be permitted within the same cable, enclosure, cable tray, raceway or cable routing assembly with conductors of power limited fire alarm circuits, provided that the insulations of the class 2 circuit conductors in the cables is at least that required by the power limited fire alarm circuits. Sa C naman, low power, network powered broadband communication cables and PLFA cables. Low power, network powered broadband communication circuits shall be permitted in the same enclosure, cable tray, raceway or cable routing assembly with PLFA cables. Letter D, audio system circuits and PLFA circuits. Audio system circuits described in 6.40.1.9 C yan, hindi yan ganyang C, and installed using class 2 or class 3 wiring methods in compliance with 7.25.3.13 and 7.25.3.34 shall not be permitted to be installed in the same cable, cable tray or raceway cable routing assembly with power limited conductors or cables. Next one, 7.60.3.22, conductor size, conductors of 0.125 mm square shall be permitted only where spliced with the connector listed as suitable for 1.25 mm square to 0.25 millimeter square or larger conductors that are terminated on equipment where the 0.1.25 millimeter square conductors are terminated on equipment listed as suitable for 0.125 millimeter square conductors. Single conductor shall not be smaller than 0.75 millimeter square. 7.60.2.3 Support of conductors. Power limited fire alarm circuit conductor shall not be strapped, taped, or attached by any means to the exterior of any conduit or other raceway as means of support. Next one is 7.60.3.25 current carrying continuous line type fire detectors. A. Application. Listed continuous line type fire detectors including insulated copper, tubing, and pneumatically operated detectors employed for both detection and carrying signal current shall be permitted to be used in power limited circuits. B. Installation. Continuous line type fire detectors shall be installed in accordance with 7.60.3.4 through 7.60.3.10 and 7.60.3.13. Yung mga nauna na. 7.60.3.34 Application of listed PLFA cables. PLFA cables shall comply with the requirements described in Table 7.60.3.34 or where the cable substitutions are made as shown in 7.60.3.34a. Where the substitute cables are installed, the wiring requirements of Part 7.60.1 and Part 7.60 shall apply. Types FPL-PCI, FPL-RCI, and FPL-CI cables shall be permitted to be installed to provide 2R circuit integrity rated cables. A. Fire alarm cable substitutions. The substitutions for fire alarm cables listed in Table 7.60.3.34 and illustrated in Figure 7.60.3.35 shall be permitted. Where substitute cable are installed, the wiring requirements of Part 7.60 and 7.60.3 shall apply. Last, 7.60 listing requirements. 7.60.4.1 listing and marking of NPLFA cables. NPLFA cables installed as wiring within building shall be listed in accordance with 7.60.4.1 A through B, A and B rather, and as being resistant to the spread of fire in accordance with the 7.60.4.1 C through F, and shall be marked in accordance with 7.60.4.1 G. Cables used in wet locations shall be listed for use in wet locations or have a moisture impervious metal sheet. NPLFA cables shall have a temperature rating of not less than 60 degrees. So A. NPLFA conductor materials. Conductor shall be 0.75 mm square or larger solid or stranded copper. B. Insulated conductors. Insulation on conductor shall be rated for the system voltage and not less than 600 volts. Insulated conductors 2 mm square and larger shall be one of the type listed in Table 3.10.3.1 or 1 that is identified for this use. Insulated conductors 0.75 mm square and 1.25 mm square shall be in accordance with 7.60.2.9. Types NPLFP. Type NPLFP non-power limited fire alarm cables for use in other spaces used for environment air shall be listed as being suitable for use in other space used for environmental air as described in 3.0.1.22c, and shall also be listed as having adequate fire resistant and low smoke producing characteristics. D. Types NPLFR non-power limited fire alarm riser cable shall be listed as being suitable for use in a vertical run in a shaft or from the floor to floor, and shall also be listed as having fire resistant characteristics capable of preventing the carrying of fire from floor to floor. E. Types NPLFP types NPLF. Types NPLF and non-power limited fire alarm cable shall be listed as being suitable for general purpose fire alarm use with the exception of riser, ducts, plenums, and other space used for environmental air. So yan. Another F naman, fire alarm circuit integrity, cable or electrical circuit protective system. Cables that are used for survivability of critical circuits under fire conditions shall meet the 7.60.4.1 F1 or F2 as follows. Circuit integrity cables specified in 7.60.4.1c, D, and E and E, and used for survivability of critical circuits shall have an additional classification using the suffix CI. Circuit integrity cable shall only be permitted to be installed in arrays where specifically listed and marked as part of an electrical circuit protective system as covered in 7.60.4.1. Two electrical circuit protective systems, cables specified in 7.60.4.1c, D and E, and F1 that are part of an electrical circuit protective system shall be identified with the protective system number and hourly rating printed on the outer jacket of the cable and installed in accordance with the listing of the protective system. G is and PLFA cable markings. Multi-conductors, non-power limited fire alarms cable shall be marked in accordance with table 7.60.4.1 G, and PLFP cables shall be permitted to be marked with a maximum usage voltage ratings of 150 volts. Cables that are listed for CI shall be identified with suffix CI as defined in 7.64.1 F. Temperature rating shall be marked on the jacket of the NPLFA cables that have temperature rating exceeding 60 degree. So jacket of shall be marked with conductor size also. So section 7.60.4.4 listing and marking of PLFA cables and insulated continuous line type fire detectors. Types PLFA cable installed as wiring within building shall be listed as being resistant to the spread of fire and other criteria in accordance with 7.60.4.1. 7.60.4.4a rather through H and shall be marked in accordance with 7.64.1i. Insulated continuous time detector shall be listed in accordance with 7.60.4.4. Cable used in a wet location shall be listed for use in wet location or have a moisture impervious metal sheet. Conductor materials shall be solid or stranded copper. So copper talaga halos. So B, conductor size. Size of conductors of multi-conductor cable shall not be smaller than 0.125 mm square. Single conductors shall not be smaller than 0.75 mm square. Ratings naman, cable shall have a voltage rating of not less than 300 volts and have a temperature rating of not less than 60 degrees Celsius. Types FPLP. Types FPLP power limited fire alarm plenum cable shall be listed as being suitable for use in ducts, plenums, and other spaces used for environmental air and shall also be listed as having adequate fire resistant and low smoke producing characteristics. E. Types FPLR. Types FPLR power limited fire alarm cable shall be listed as being suitable for the use of in vertical run in a shaft or from floor to floor and shall also be listed as having fire resistant characteristic capable of preventing the carrying of fire from floor to floor. F. Types FPL. Types FPL power limited fire alarm cable shall be listed as suitable for general purpose fire alarm use with the exception of riser, ducts, plenums, and other spaces used for environmental air and shall also be listed as being resistant to the spread of fire. Fire alarm circuit integrity cable or electrical circuit protective system. Cable that are used for survivability of critical units under fire conditions shall meet either 7.60 G1, 7.60.4.4 G1 or G2 as follows. Circuit integrity cables, CI cables specified in 7.60.4.4 D, E, F, and H and used for survivability of critical units shall have an additional classification using the suffix CI. CI cable shall only be permitted to be installed in arrays waivers specifically listed as and marked as part of an electrical circuit protective system as covered in 7.60.4.24 G2. 2 electrical circuit protective system. Cables specified in 7.60.4.4 D, E, F, H, and G1 that are part of an electrical circuit protective system shall be identified with the protective system number and hourly rating printed on the outer jacket of the cable and installed in accordance with the listing of the protective system. H. Coaxial cable. Coaxial cable shall be permitted to use 30% of conductivity copper covered steel entire conductor wire and shall be listed as type FPLP, FPLR, or FPL cable. I. Cable marking. The cable shall be marked in accordance with 7.60.4.4i. The voltage rating shall not be marked on the cable. Cable that are listed for CI shall be identified with suffix CI as defined in 7.60.4.4G. And J. Insulated continuous line type fire detectors. Insulated continuous line fire type detector shall be rated in accordance with 7.60.4.4C, listed as being resistant to the spread of fire in accordance with 7.60.4.4 D through F, marked in accordance with 7.60.4.4 I, and the jacket compound shall have a high degree of abrasion resistant. Temperature rating shall be marked on the jacket of PLFA cables that have temperature rating exceeding 60 degrees Celsius. The jacket of PLFA cable shall be marked in accordance with the conductor size. So that's the end of my report, and thank you for listening, and God bless.